Alex Syberia Designs has a fabulous new release with everything you need to make holiday, Christmas, and New Year's cards. Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel, and this video is part of the Alex Syberia Designs video hop. And there's lots of information about giveaways and who you should hop along to next down in the YouTube description box below this video. But for now, let's take a quick flip through the stamps, dies, stencils, and foil plates that I will be working with today. First, let's check out the Midnight Blooms hot foil plate set. As you can see, you get two large flowers that you can foil. You could use these throughout the year as well, depending on the coloring that you use. This is the die set. It cuts out these two flowers as well as the stamps that are included in the Midnight Blooms stamp set. And there's a Midnight Blooms stencil set. So there are 4 stencils. On each stencil, you get a part for the large flower and a part for the small flower. This is the Noel hot foil plate and die. You can see that the shadow die will cut out the hot foil plate. Next up, we have Merry Christmice. These are adorable little mice characters with a ton of accessories. The dies cut out everything on the stamp set. Next, we have the Joy hot foil plate and die. Similarly to the Noel, you can cut out the Joy hot foil with the shadow die. Next, we have the Joyful Poinsettia die. It's a layering die set. You can see there's lots of layers for the petals, and there are centers for the flower and leaves. There's also the Holiday Wreath and Branch stencil set. It's a 4 stencil set with leaves and branches for a wreath, as well as a bow and 2 bows, and there are dies to cut all those pieces out as well. Moving on to New Year's, there's the Happy New Year hot foil plate and die. You can again cut the hot foil plate out with the shadow. There's a stencil set called Festive Fun with confetti, as well as a star foil plate that does a beautiful background. Now let's use all those amazing Alex Syberia Designs goodies to make some cards. For this first card, I'm using the Alex Syberia Designs Holiday Branch and Wreath stencil set and dies. So I'm starting with the wreath, and you can see that the first stencil for the wreath has those branches. The second stencil has some leaves. I love the ability to create colorful images like this because you don't have to do any coloring. All you're doing is ink blending. So just line up the third stencil for the berries on these leaves, and you can choose a variety of different colors here. I'm going with some sort of traditional but bright traditional colors. So I have that really bright green and then this super bright red, and I'm working on a waffle flower water media mat to hold my paper in place. It also holds the stencil in place on the sides, but you can see I did use a little bit of tape this time for the second round of leaves because some of it was going off of the media mat. But look at how pretty that wreath comes out with just a little bit of ink blending. I did want to show you the other images that are on the stencil as well. So I am blending 2 different colors of bows. The large bow is going to be red. Now, the bows are a layered image, so there are 2 layers, and you want to use maybe 2 different reds, or a red and a pink, a light green and a dark green, something like that, to make that image look dimensional. And that's what you can create with these awesome stencils. I also wanted to show you the bow. So I have the little branches for the bow, and then I'll line up the leaves. I'm using the same color combination because I might use both of these on the same card, even though they really provide you a lot so that you can make different types of cards. Here I have the bow and the 2 ribbons and bows. There's also a sentiment, so I just wanted to show you what that looked like. But there's no dies for the sentiment, so I'm using the Joy die, which I cut out of gold mirror cardstock, and I'm placing it on a shadow of vellum. I don't know if you use vellum as your shadow all that often, but I love the way it looks. It's just such a nice subtle touch to the background of that die. So here I'll pop up the wreath so that I have a little bit of distance from the background there. I'm going to pop up the bow on top. Both of them get a bow, and then the Joy Gold Mirror cardstock and shadow get a little bit of liquid glue with my Sweet Petunias glue precision press and placed right in the middle of that wreath. Next, I'll flip the card over and trim off anything that hangs off the side. I love how easy this wreath was to create. So much fun. Okay, next card, we're going to use that beautiful poinsettia die set. So I've picked out a whole bunch of different red cardstocks. If you don't have different red cardstocks, you could use one and ink blend on top of it to create different shades, things like that. Or if you have different inks, you could do that. And I'm piling each layer on top of the other with a little foam square in between each so that you get tons and tons of dimension. The only thing that's going to be flat is the flower centers. And I loved on the sample that they provided on the packaging, they had all of the centers kind of clustered together. I loved how that looked. So I cut mine out of Gold Mirror cardstock and added those to the center of the flower. I've also cut out the Noel die out of Gold Mirror cardstock. And I have some of the leaves cut out of green cardstock. Now I cut both leaf dies out of dark green and light green cardstock. That gives me tons of leaves to play with, and just use a little bit of liquid glue on the end of the branch and then just tuck it inside any of those layers of the poinsettia. And once again, once that's done, you have to just trim off those excess if you want to fit it inside an A2 envelope. So the last thing that I did here was just curl up some of the petals to give them even more dimension than they have with that foam square. I believe that usually poinsettias have that kind of curled look to their petals, so I definitely wanted to make it just a little bit more natural and organic looking. Next, I'm using the Merry Christmice, and I'll stamp out all of the images and accessories out of black ink that is alcohol ink safe, as well as on a cardstock that's alcohol ink safe. And I'm using my Ohuhu markers to color them in. But I'm just doing really basic coloring, so I'm not going to share that here because it takes a long time for me to color. I'm very slow and it's not really anything fancy. I have the Merry Christmas sentiment that I can also die cut with the dies. The dies really cover everything on the stamp set. So I'll use a little liquid glue to adhere that down to a red cardstock that I matted on a dark green cardstock. And now I'll have the big Christmas tree also flat to the card. I'm going to play with dimension a little bit here, so some things are going to be flat. You'll see me use the precision glue press to add little bits of liquid adhesive, but then some things like this mice on the ladder will be popped up with a small foam square. I love these little critters. I didn't think mice could ever be so cute, but these are just adorable. There's a little bit of mistletoe, there are presents, candy cane, decorations for the trees, lots of little images that you can color in with the bullet tip of an Ohuhu marker. Makes it really easy to color those in, and then just look at this fun scene. It's so easy to create with this set. Next, I want to show you some of the foiling with their hot foil plates. I always adhere my piece of foil down to my piece of cardstock with a little bit of tape on the back. That keeps the foil in place so it doesn't slide around. You're more likely to get a nice, crisp, clear image. Then I'll place it down onto the foil plate. Once the platform is all heated up, I'll put my two clear plates and my shim on top and then run it through my die cut machine. I'm going to do the same thing with the smaller flower. I'm using gold a lot. I love gold foil on cards. I also have the Noel and the Joy, which I want to foil so that I can die cut them out. But how about a little bit of rainbow foil too for the Happy New Year? I thought that would be fun. Here's that star plate that I mentioned. I'm foiling that with the rainbow foil as well on some white cardstock. And I'll use some silver kind of glittery looking foil on some black cardstock. So here's how everything turned out. Look at that. The lines are absolutely perfect. I love these flowers. The foil will resist ink, so that's what we're going to do in a card soon. And these guys can get cut out with the shadow dies from the die sets. So it's nice to have all of those options, dies and foil plates. I love these stars. They're so cute. Again, these could be used throughout the year. You don't have to just use them during the holidays. They could be used for birthdays as well. So here are the shadow dies I'm cutting out: the Noel, Joy, and Happy New Year. Here's everything cut out. It is absolutely perfect, and then you can pop those up as well. All right, so for the first large flower of the Midnight Blooms set, I am using the first stencil on the large flower. Again, it is foiled. That foil will resist the ink, especially with something like Distress Oxide. You'll have time to wipe it away if it does end up on top of the foiling. But I find that the foil really beautifully resists, and that you can line up your stencil so that you're just getting ink where you want it, not necessarily on top of the foil. And check out these details. I love stencils like this because they make the coloring of an image so much easier than doing marker coloring or pencil coloring. That is definitely fun and relaxing and a great way to create cards, but I really love when you're in a pinch for some time to have these layering stencils to create a beautiful flower like that. So I am using traditional Christmas colors here of Distress Oxide inks, a couple of greens and a couple of reds, but like I mentioned, you could definitely change up the color combination here and make flowers for all throughout the year. I don't necessarily think that these have to be holiday flowers or Christmas flowers, which is nice because it makes the hot foil set really worth its money because you're not just using it during the holidays. Here are the dies to cut out those flowers, and that means that I can pop these flowers up on a background. So you can see I have a green piece of A2 cardstock here, and I'm going to place the largest flower as far as I can to the left so that the leaves are not hanging off the side. I want the whole image this time, and then I'll layer the smaller flower on top, and it's perfect because you see both the blooms and all of those leaves, even though you're layering them slightly on top of each other. I have the Noel foiled and die cut piece, and that is right on top for the sentiment. Now let's move into Happy New Year cards. So I have an A2 piece of white cardstock that I foiled the stars in gold on, and now I'm using the Festive Fun stencil. You can see that there's sort of confetti at the top and confetti at the bottom, and I'm using the center area to be a little bit more open to place my sentiment. So I have a rainbow of confetti here: pink, blue, yellow, and orange, and then those gold stars. I love the way this came out. This is so much fun. And again, doesn't need to be Happy New Year, although I used the Happy New Year foiled sentiment. Could be Happy Birthday as well. I did mat it on some gold mirror cardstock too, just to make that gold really pop in three places: the stars, the sentiment, and the background. For the silver on the black, I am using Distress Oxide ink again. The nice thing about Distress Oxide ink is that it does sit a little bit on top of the paper, so you can see kind of a ghost of color on the black, and that is something that dye ink would not do on black. So you can either use pigment ink or you can use something like Distress Oxide ink. So I have a rainbow of colors of confetti again, and then the rainbow foiled Happy New Year. I had such a blast creating with these new Alex Syberia Designs products, but I'd love to hear what caught your eye today. Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget that this video is part of a big Alex Syberia Designs YouTube hop. All the information about the giveaway and who to hop along to next will be in the YouTube description box below this video. As always, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. I looked off like I didn't know where the camera was. Okay. Let's settle down. Now somebody's printing in here. Remember the days before AirPrint when you couldn't be disrupted by someone printing from far away? Remember those days? They weren't bad.